In today's video, we're going to repair a speaker on a Tesla Model S. Now, this will be similar for a Tesla Model X as well, and I would imagine also the Model 3 may be similar. This car is 7 years old, and the speaker in the driver's side on the rear door no longer works. So to test the sound system, there are a couple of ways you can do that. I have some copyright-free music playing in the background here, and you can go into the settings and you can go into the balance and you can move the balance around, and that'll shift the audio throughout the car. And I can hear it moving around the car until I shift it to there, and then everything is very, very quiet, because the other speakers are putting out a little bit of sound, but the majority is supposed to be coming out of the speaker in the driver's side rear door. That's how you can find it using music. The other way you can find it is actually using the toy box. You can use the whoopee cushion and you can shift that around. You have to wait until it finishes playing before you shift it to the next position. But when I do that, I hear nothing. When I do that, I hear something. Again, nothing. Now the next thing we're going to need to do is we're actually going to need to disassemble the door. To do that, you roll down the window and you get like a nylon prying tool like this or something like that. A flathead screwdriver would probably do it if you're careful. And you want to pull inside this grip well. There is a plastic seal, so you're going to have to pull this piece out. So you get something under the end, and then you can grab it with your finger and you can pull it out. And then once you've done that, you need a 9mm socket to undo this bolt. So once you've undone that, then you move on to this panel here. And again, you're going to need something like a nylon pry tool to get this panel out. And this is actually pushed in further. I've loosened it already just to show you where it goes. But you're again going to pop this out, and you probably have to lift the door handle to get it out. So this piece, and then there are these are Torx 20, I believe. So you need to extract the two Torx 20 screws. So once you've done that, you're going to shift down to the corner and you're going to start prying around the edge, and you're going to hear a bunch of pops. And the pops are clips. There are white clips that hold the door in place. And so I've already removed most of them to make this really easy to take off. I'm just going to take it off now. And you want to pull these clips, you want to pull the panel directly away from the door. Don't twist it, just pull it straight away, because the clips are strong if you twist them, but they give out pretty easy if you pull them straight off. We've released that, and I have an 18-inch box here, and I'm just going to rest the panel on the box so that we have some slack in the cable. And the idea here is we don't want to strain these cables and have the plugs get pulled apart. If we pull these wires out of the plugs, it's a real pain in the butt to fix them. I'm just doing that, and that's holding the door panel up. And so here's our speaker that's not making any sound. And to test this out, you're going to need a flathead screwdriver or something like that. And I've already actually taken the screws out of the screws that 4 screws, torque screws that hold that up, hold it to the door. We just need to loosen this clip here, which is what powers the speaker with sound. We've loosened that clip, and I have a multimeter that I wedged into the door here. The front door speakers on the Tesla Model S are 1 ohm resistance. The back are supposed to be 2 ohm resistance. When I touch the leads together, I get continuity. I'm not expecting continuity, I'm expecting 2 ohms of resistance. I am making contact with the leads where the speaker wire plugs into. Just so you can see what I'm doing, there are two leads. Those little silver things are plug leads that connect into this cable here. When I make a circuit, by connecting these 2 leads, I'm expecting my multimeter to give me a resistance value in ohms, a 2 ohm resistance value. So I am making contact with both of those leads with my probes, and there's nothing. We know that this has a problem. So the next thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to remove the 4 screws. So again, it's using a Torx bit. This is a smaller Torx bit. This, I think, is a Torx 10. Yeah, it's a Torx 10. Once you have released all 4 of the screws, then you can pull this off. And so this is our speaker. And that's what it looks like. And you can see there it says 2 ohms for the resistance. We need to take this inside and repair it. So I'm going to take this inside and show you how we can test it and how we can repair it. We covered how to take the speaker out of the car and how to test it while it was in the car to determine which one was the faulty speaker. Now we're going to actually inspect this speaker and see if we can figure out if it can be saved. We'll start by looking at the wiring, just visually inspecting. The wiring looks like it's intact, but one thing that doesn't look right is it looks like the plastic melted here, and some of the melted plastic went down onto the wire itself. There may have been some fraying at this point that caused the speaker wire to fail. We're going to test it with a multimeter first. And again, if we have a working speaker, we expect to see a 2 ohm resistance value that's written here on the label. Let's see if we can get that 2 ohm value. We'll just start by tracing from where the plugs come into the speaker. And you can see we don't have anything there. And we'll just kind of go along. Don't have anything there. On the other side of these mount points, we are getting the resistance we expect. If I make good contact, it's pretty good resistance. Okay, so let's see if we come up on this side of this one. This is bad, because if we can't get from this to here and still have a signal, because we know that the signal can go around to these two parts, and we know that this is bad. So now let's flip over and try the other side. So again, we're getting our signal, And if we try with this one, we get nothing. It appears that both of these little plastic points have failed. These holding points have failed, and the wires failed within those holding points. So that means that we need to bodge some wire from the plugs here to there. Before we do that, let's just see if we can get the speaker to actuate. So we've got resistance. Let's just see if we can make it do something. For that, what I have is I have a 9-volt battery, and you can buy a 9-volt battery to barrel connector adapter on AliExpress or Amazon or eBay. And what we're just going to do is we're going to put 9 volts through the speaker and see if we can get it to actuate. A speaker is just like an electromagnet. You put a little bit of voltage through it and we'll energize that and see if we can get the speaker to jump. So we know we have to go on the other side of these plastic things because they're screwed up. But let's just see if we can get it to go. And there you go. So I don't know if you heard that. That is the speaker doing speaker things. So the coil is fine. It's just that we have a failure at these 2 points here. I need to get set up with a soldering iron, and then I'll come back and I'll try and bodge a connection to bypass this part so that we get a good connection from down here to the plug pin, and then hopefully that should fix this speaker. We're set up to do the repair now. The repair is going to be to bodge the wire from the good side to the pin, and we're going to do that for both sides. I've already done it for the one side, and I'm going to show you how we do it for the other. So first, just a quick note about the wiring. These 2 ohms can take up to 550 watts of power, and for that you need an 18 gauge wire or better. We're going to use stranded 18 gauge speaker wire. You could also use a thicker gauge. This is a 14 gauge wire, but this is a solid wire. This is from your house. Wiring, don't use this. Because solid wire doesn't have any flexibility, when you're going over bumps, it'll break a solder connection really quickly. So don't use this for actually bodging the wire. Make sure you get something stranded that's flexible. Don't use a DuPont wire or an Ethernet wire. These are way too small gauge. This is like a 22 gauge or 24 gauge. It's way too small to carry the amount of current that's going to be going across these conductors, and it'll burn up. And you don't want that. It'll burn up, it'll break the connection, and then you'll have a broken speaker all over again. So don't use a DuPont wire or anything too dinky like that. Okay, for this, we're going to take a couple of inches of wire and just strip it. If you have too much wire, it's better than having too little wire. Now we've stripped it, we're just going to twist it. And you can see what I mean by stranded. It's a bunch of strands here. We're just going to twist it so it's nice and tight, make it easier for us to work with it. Okay, now that that's all wound up, we're going to make a corkscrew around this wire. So first, let's just trim the end of this so we have a nice clean edge. And now we're going to wrap around the wire. So a couple of loops there. And now we're going to hook our corkscrew over top of this wire here. Now, if you had an automotive crimping connector of some kind, or some kind of crimping connector for small gauge wire. That might work better than a solder joint. Okay, I don't know if you can see that, but now we are hooked over that wire. That's the first thing we want to do, is just get that hooked. And that's hooked. All right. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to cut our wire free. Pull this other side out of the way. Should have done that first, but anyway. So now our wire is free, and we're going to pull this into the middle, up, through, and over our blade connection here. And this is going to be a job for tweezers. So now it's up, over, and through, and we're just going to push it down, and then we're going to make another hook here. The goal is a couple of things here. We want to hook that connection so that it's pulling to the outside, and we want to make sure that we have a gap in between here and here, because we don't want to short. If we have a short, then the speaker is still not going to work. That is looking pretty good to me. So the next thing is we're going to use our soldering iron, and we're going to solder these two connections. Just to make our lives easier, I'm going to apply some flux to copper, and that's just going to draw the solder into the copper. And I don't know if you can see, but as I do that right now, the wire moves around. When we're done, the wire shouldn't move at all. We've applied our flux. Now we're going to solder. So I've got a pine pencil, which I'm using for a soldering iron. I don't know what the melting temperature of this solder is, so I'm just going to set it to be like 300. And this thing heats up fast. That's 288, that's good enough. And you can see it, it's really fast. This thing is cool. This is a great open source project. You can flash the firmware for it. It's pretty cool. I'm going to heat the copper up. I'm going to apply solder to the other side, and the flux should help get the solder to come over. You want to do this side first. For the inside here, I'm going to go underneath it, and I'm going to try and get the solder to come on top. I'm just going to put a little piece of cardboard underneath here, just make sure that I don't drop any solder onto the speaker below. Okay, that looks slick. It looks like there's some good solder. And just poke it with my tweezers, and it seems pretty solid. That should be good. And now we're going to do the same thing on the blade here. I'm going to crank the temperature up a little bit. Alright. I think that's got it. That wire is solid, it's not moving anywhere. We're done with the soldering. Now we've got our two solder joints. Now before I go any further, I want to just make sure that I trim any little bits of copper. I don't want anything bridging those two. Alright. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to test our speaker. Just to make sure that we have made everything work as it should. First thing we're going to do is we're going to test connectivity. So just get out your multimeter. And that's pin to pin. So that's good. We're getting around. So now, just to make sure that we haven't shorted, we're going to use the 9-volt battery again. And this time we're going to go pin to pin on the 9-volt battery. And we're going to make this speaker jump. So here we go. There we go. That speaker is repaired. The next thing we got to do is just put it back in the car, and we're good to go. So let's go do that. All right, let's test this baby out. You have to push the 2-tab side in first, and then scrunch up the single tab side until you can get it to go down. Helps to have a screwdriver to do that. But that's it. The door is reassembled. The speaker is fixed. We're good to go. We've got full audio balance. Right there. driver's side, rear, fixed. See you on the next one.